March 25th is Tolkien Reading Day, and coincidentally, this video is going live on March 25th. No worries, I'm not going to read you from the book right now, but I thought I could give you some Lord of the Rings inspired fantasy recommendations. Hey everyone, Fina here from Fina Reads. Welcome and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk with you about some rather specific fantasy recommendations. March 25th is Tolkien Reading Day, and in 2026 the theme is Unlikely Heroes. So I thought I could share 5 fantasy stories that deal with unlikely heroes in one way or another. Are you ready? Book number 1 I want to talk with you about is an old favorite, and if you've watched pretty much any video on my channel, you probably already know which one is coming up right now. That is Kristen Britton's Green Rider series. The Green Rider series is about Kerrigan, who is running away from school, and as she is walking through the woods, thinking nothing evil, she is stumbling over a rider and his horse. The rider is barely clinging on to life, has 2 arrows sticking out of his back, and before he's passing away, he's making her promise to deliver a very important message to the king. And that's how her adventure starts. Unlikely hero because she's just a schoolgirl who wants to get home. She had stress at school, something bad happened, and she just wants to get home to her father. But instead she is thrown into adventures. She is thrown into the messenger service of the king, and she's becoming a very important person that has to kind of save the world. Lots of adventures, lots of Tolkien inspiration in the series too, especially in the earlier books. Think like Tom Bombadil and elusive elves, which are called Elysians here in this series, big scary spiders, that kind of stuff. As I said though, mostly in the early books, the series transforms into its own in the later books. I also highly recommend the audiobook for this series because due to the Tolkien inspiration, the elves or the Elysians are singing songs in some parts of the books, and the audiobook narrator does an amazing job singing these songs as part of the narration. My second recommendation is a bit better known fantasy series. It's a long fantasy series, very traditional, and that is Drizzt by R.A. Salvatore. We're following Drizzt, the dark elf, finding his path from the underground city Menzoberranzan as he discovers that there's more to life than what that city gives him. He's done with all the backstabbing and fighting. He's done with trying to climb to the top to become the best dark elf in the city or be part of the highest ranking family in the city. And instead he decides to get out of town and find a better life, figure out what he should actually be doing. Unlikely hero because he's actually more from a villainous race, but he has a moral compass. So he wants to figure out what to do with his life. How can he help others? And that's what he's doing, right? He's going on adventures, he's helping others, he's making friends that even become like family. A lot of classical fantasy elements in here. Dark elves, obviously, elves, dwarves, humans, all that kind of good stuff. R.A. Salvatore even said that he modeled Drizzt, partially at least, after Aragorn, who's kind of a misunderstood character holding up to a high standard, and that's what we are getting in this series. Very long, I believe we are at way past the 40 book mark, but they are all organized in trilogies or quartets, so it's pretty easy to get through the series, and they're all really fun and quick reads. Are you liking these unusual recommendations so far? Well, then go down below and hit the subscribe button because I have a lot of those on my channel. As an example, I just did a recommendation on epic fantasy series by female authors. Go check that out. Recommendation number 3 that I want to mention is Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. In this series, we are following Vin, technically a thief, who is thrown into a rebellion where she learns more about herself than she could have ever imagined. The rebellion, which is led by the lower class, is trying to overthrow the Dark Lord, and as part of the preparations for the rebellion, Vin learns a lot about her magical abilities, and that's where the unlikely hero part really comes in. She is from that lower class, and magical abilities are usually only available for people from the upper class, from the rich, from the lords and the ladies. But she is developing them, and she becomes a very important person in that rebellion and then in the continued story. There's some other things that fit into the unlikely hero theme. I don't want to mention them though because they kind of are spoilers. So if you are someone who hasn't read Mistborn yet, I will shut up. If you've read Mistborn, you will likely already know what I mean with that. Hopefully. Mistborn is actually an interesting twist on Lord of the Rings because Sanderson mentioned that he wrote Mistborn as a thought experiment to see where would the story go if the Dark Lord, Sauron, won. And in this case, in Mistborn's case, it starts out with the Dark Lord having taken over the world and running it more or less well. Recommendation number 4 is Elizabeth Moon's Sheepfarmer's Daughter. I have to say that name really slow, otherwise I keep stumbling over it. In the Deeds of Paxenarian series, this series is about Paxenarian, or Pax, who is supposed to marry. The father already paid the dowry. She doesn't want any of that though, and instead runs away, and she decides to join an army or a mercenary group associated with the Duke. And in the story, we follow Pax as she learns how to fight and grows with her abilities and goes to battles and skirmishes, travels a lot as well. And a very important aspect also of this story is the found family and friends aspect, because she meets a lot of people along the way, a lot of people that become very important to her and that support her on her journey. Definitely an unlikely hero because Pax is a sheep farmer's daughter. She's an ordinary person that gets thrown into adventures and becomes a hero figure as part of the journey. And then to top it all off, there are also a lot of journeys in here. There's a lot of walking around, going from one skirmish to another. So that fits the Lord of the Rings theme as well, right? Ooh, by the way, these smaller battles that I mentioned are actually very interesting in this book because Elizabeth Moon, the author, has military experience, and you can definitely see that in how she describes the battles. Very cool. The last book, my last recommendation for a fantasy series with an unlikely hero, might come a little bit out of left field, but bear with me. I'm talking about the Eric Carter series by Stephen Blackmore. Book 1 is Dead Things. This is a 9-book urban fantasy series where we follow Eric Carter, who is a snarky necromancer. He left Los Angeles because he wanted to protect his sister. Turns out his sister got killed anyway, so he's coming back years later now, trying to figure out what happened and to get vengeance. But of course, the things are a lot more complicated than they might seem. This series is a lot of fun. He's a snarky necromancer, so you get a lot of humor in there. The magic system is really cool. A lot of found family again as well. And it's an unlikely hero because he, again, is actually more a villainous type figure, but he gets a moral compass and realizes there's more to life than your own self. And he grows a lot in this book and helps save a lot of people and save the day in a lot of situations. So very fun read if you're looking for something kind of different than your typical epic medieval inspired fantasy. Still fantasy though, just urban. With a theme of unlikely hero, what are other fantasy series, or standalones for that matter, that we should be adding, talking about as part of this conversation? Let us know down in the comments. I want to create a huge list of recommendations for that theme. I hope you enjoyed my recommendations, that there was something fun for you that you might want to pick up. If so, also let me know in the comments. And while you're down there, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and see you with my next video. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.